All right, I'm just testing out going live here, live streamage. I just tested doing this, so I know I don't have anybody commenting or anything. It's just I'm just seeing if it'll work from my computer at home here. So yeah, let's just talk a little bit about what's going on with the Democrats trying to impeach Trump. Uh, First of all, I think it's epically retarded. Like it's probably the worst thing that the Democrats have done, like move wise, in the game of chess against the Republicans, quote unquote. It looks like just total arrogant malfeasance, like on their part. They have no there's no documented evidence of a quid pro quo, their weird safe word that they've been using for the last couple days here. It's just over and over again, boom, 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 quid pro quo, and there's no evidence of it. I just think they're all working together. I think that it's all just a stage play. I think nothing really matters as far as politics unless you take into consideration the Federal Reserve, and that's why I'm posting Bash by the Bankers Part Two and then Part Three today. Just getting this thing going here. I'll try to get people to get on here and comment and stuff. It doesn't matter because the banks are still in charge. Central banks run our money system. And this book here, man, I'm telling you, Bash by the Bankers by Byron Dale. It's definitely top choice if you want to learn about the Federal Reserve, how it works, what's really going on behind the scenes. Like, what is the deep state? And when you get into that with people, they think it's just Democrats or it's George Soros and all this. Like, you look at the Rockefellers before Soros really kind of got in there and started, paying these different, Antifa, La Reconquista, all these different organizations, all the ADL, Southern Poverty Law Center, teaming up with people like Soros to kind of bash constitutionalists, people that just want to go back to the original founding document, which expressly forbids, the issuance of currency without it being. It cannot be just paper. It has to be backed by something. And so we have a big problem there with our freedom, and it's really obvious. Like when you look at how much money it costs, for them to print out each note, like 2.5 cents for each note. So it's insane, guys. Like what we're living through right now. 5G, the Alex Jones coming out talking about 6G, which was fascinating. Like just the fact that uh, all this stuff is connected with our furniture, like the dishwashers that can spy on you. You can Google that. Dishwashers are spying on people. It's not just that; it's everything. They got these Google home appliances in your house with Siri on it or whatever the hell, Alexa and all that. It's spying on you guys. Like in the Byron Dale piece I just did, I think it was part two. He said like why are people so paranoid of being listened to over the phone? Because they're being listened to over the phone. Even back in the 80s, back when this book was basically created, all the story parts of it were. And it's like why can't we just realize that the central banks are the problem? That it's not the left or the right. It's the central banks. Look in the central banking region. That's the eagle. That's the body of this giant. It's not even an eagle. It's like a phoenix. It's rising up out of the ashes of the United States after we've been conquered. That's actually real um, occult symbolism. Is a phoenix, and how the phoenix is usually used as the symbol for the falling of empires and creating new empires, more shadowy empires after those larger empires collapse, like Rome. All those people that controlled Rome still control the world to this day, essentially. Julius Caesar. When you watch the Ring of Power documentary that I posted on the top of the channel, you'll see what I'm saying. That it's all connected to Rome. All roads lead to Rome. In Egypt, there's a merger of Egypt and Rome that most people don't realize with Julius Caesar and Cleopatra having a kid. And the film gets way deep into it. And it's pretty much like the best film I've ever seen about like the shadow deep state. That's really what the deep state is. It's royalty. And when you really finally realize that, you'll see why we had 1776, why they were doing what they did, and how it turned out. How it was just a big experiment for a republic. You know, um, Basically, like Plato wrote a book, uh, Plato's Republic, and then the Freemasons were like trying to be like philosophers and trying to figure out what the best system of government would be for people, legitimately. And those different Masonic organizations were taken over slowly but surely. If you look up the George Washington letters, where he talked about the Illuminati, it's all in there, and that this Illuminati is really just these royal families coming in and controlling everything from behind the scenes, using usually financing through central banks, like the Bank of England back then. We had to literally back away from that system completely because of the taxation without representation. They were forcing us into having a system where we're basically enslaved. Where you can't really make your way, you can't really own land if these bankers can come in and just take it from you. And that's the whole point of America, was to get away from central banks, guys. That's my whole point here. And we've gone so far away from the Constitution because we have a central bank. Woodrow Wilson and the Federal Reserve Act, ever since that was passed, ever since that's been going on, Bretton Woods allowing the United States dollar to be the global reserve currency, that was huge. That was like that was the fall of Western civilization right there, because you have a private faction controlling every country, essentially. That every country had to buy the dollar first before they're able to make any monetary or goods or anything, any kind of transaction. They would have to buy the dollar first. So it's an empire by design. The dollar was always meant to collapse too. That's key. It's always meant to collapse. You can't mathematically keep debt piling up and piling up and piling up, and it's just mathematically going to collapse. Like how they have to raise interest rates and all this stuff right now, or lower interest rates. That's what they're doing right now with the Federal Reserve with Powell right now. Like Jerome Powell, he's just another puppet though. I mean, he can't do anything. He can't literally cannot do anything at all because the dollar is so devalued now. It's devalued since Woodrow Wilson. It's devalued 98. Some people say 99% at this point. And once it gets to 100, that's when the clock strikes midnight, and we're basically looking at the collapse of the global economy, not just the American economy, not just the United States, but China. All these Brexit ideas that are happening right now are based off of this, because these countries need to break away from these larger systems and become more sovereign in order for them to maintain their borders, their economic prosperity. They have to break away from this larger system of really just corruption and dependence, interdependence, like I talked about in my NAFTA video. That they want to create, and people that pass these legislations down from the Trilateral Commission and onward, Council on Foreign Relations, they planned all these things out for 50 or more years, 100-year plans to eventually erode away our sovereignty, erode away our money system, so that we would collapse and then actually further enter into a police state where our rights are taken away, and we're then amalgamated, turned into this giant festering global government that would never really function for the people. It would always just function for these few elite that set it up through the Council on Foreign Relations and the Trilateral Commission. The Trilateral Commission runs all the Federal Reserve's plans, everything that they do. Like Jerome Powell doesn't plan anything out, guys. It's the Trilateral Commission. Okay, look this stuff up. They're they're tricking everybody. I mean, Trump is not in charge here. It's the Council on Foreign Relations, which is the Western arm of, I guess you could call it the American version of the Royal Institute of International Affairs. Royal Institute of International Affairs was always created that to create global government. Since the Rhodes Scholarship, Rhodes Scholars, Cecil Rhodes, um, you go back to Milner, the Milner Group, Lord Alfred Milner in Milner's Kindergarten, and that talks about global government being set up from behind the scenes and us literally losing sovereignty by design. It's not an accident that we have all this influx of people coming in across the border and slowly replacing the population after we all become awake and aware to the corruption and tyranny. They're replacing the population and creating sort of a Babylon situation where it's like the Tower of Babel is basically this idea that we can have the connection between Mexico, the United States, and Canada, which is all about, if you look into the USMCA, it's just another NAFTA. It's just another merging of the borders, erasing the borders essentially. So you're left with nothing but an open air prison that the countries don't have control of, that the corporations have control of, that since we can't actually maintain our own economic fortitude with our currency, that since these borders are wide open to pretty much anything coming in, that we would be left to have to squabble for breadcrumbs. And that's basically what it is. That the system itself right now is designed to milk us. We're literally being milked like cattle. And the elite, they talk about it too. They say that they call us chattel, and that they want a culling of the masses. And that's pretty much like what royal families have been doing all along. Ever since way back in time, they've planned out things with other royal families, and they were usually cousins and stuff like this. They're actually interbred, which gets into the Ring of Power. If you watch that, it explains why that is. That all these royal families stem from the Egyptian merger with Rome, with Cleopatra and Julius Caesar. It's the most important marriage that ever happened in history, as far as we're concerned. And it all stems from that. These bloodlines, they are all related, which is sick. I mean, it's inbreeding. They keep their wealth in the family. That's how they've maintained this much power for so long, because no one else can get a hold of that wealth that's been milked out of us from the bottom up, like roots. Like all of the water's gone out of the soil. Like they're the ones with all the moisture up there, and the trickle down economics doesn't work. It's more like a root pulling all the moisture upwards. That's really what trickle down economics is. That you have this husk of what once used to be the United States, and all it's left is just all these old abandoned warehouses and buildings and factories that were part of a vibrant economy and that had GDP value, gross domestic product is down big time. That's how you that's how you can kind of tell that the economy isn't really doing as well as they were forecasting when Trump first got in. Again, the Federal Reserve. Trump even said that the Federal Reserve is more dangerous than China. But Trump also said he's a globalist and a nationalist, which that's basically what the USMCA is. It's cover. It makes you think that it's anti-NAFTA for the nationalists, but really it's a globalist legislation. So it kind of whets your palate for if you're a nationalist and leaves you bone dry later when you find out what's really in the legislation. Because we're going to be a husk, guys, if we keep this up. We have to occupy the Federal Reserve. That's the only real movement that we could actually possess as a free society, an open society, a nonviolent movement, of course, to occupy the Federal Reserve. It would be like pretty much the only way to get the word out about these banksters, this just separated class of people that loan all these institutions, these 12 branch banks, all their money. And we are stuck with all this interest and fees and debt that is accumulated on top of everything that it's not really worth it for us guys to have to be paying back debt with debt. It'll never work out, you see. It is impossible. It's the biggest trick that's ever been put on people, besides the geoengineering programs, besides GMO and all this other stuff that's physically attacking us. I guess that would be worse, right? I mean, sodium fluoride in the water, you know, a neurotoxin that breaks down to hexafluorosilicate, um, uh, and it really damages the brain, the nervous system. It's it's basically a neurotoxin that they poisoned our water with a neurotoxin on top of robbing us blind with a phony fiat currency system that is not even, it's not worth anything. It's just paper, guys. Literally, it's got shiny little stuff on it and holographic strip that goes down to 100 and 50, and that's it. That's maybe they spend a little bit more on those things, more than 2.5 cents. But everything else, 2.5 cents or 2.60 cents, you know, it's really like um, the only thing that people should be talking about is the Federal Reserve. The party system right now is literally like a soap opera for people to watch on TV and think that they're free and think that they're involved in something that is a show trial. That is the biggest joke that I've ever seen. I mean, there is no evidence, again, that Trump has done anything wrong. But I don't even support Trump anymore, guys. I have been really questioning why I keep defending this guy when he keeps putting these shadow deep state people in there, like Bolton, like John Bolton. I mean, for him to put Bolton in there, once he did that, I realized it was pretty much all over. It was, you know, you got this big, huge organization of shadow workers doing all the bidding of Henry Kissinger. I mean, Kushner going to the Bilderberg Group is another big. That's what really made me not want to vote for Trump, guys. That's, if you want to know why I don't want to vote for Trump, is I don't trust him. He sent his main advisor, his son-in-law, right, Jared Kushner, to the Bilderberg Group conference. And he went on the boat with Henry Kissinger and talked about God knows what, probably what's happening right now with Neuralink. They had all those people from advanced computer companies going into Bilderberg this year. So that's, you know, they're probably getting ready to release this whole Neuralink thing, which is really, like, really creepy, guys. The fact that they want to put holes in your skull and connect it to your brain through fiber optic cables, I mean, that's insane. Like, they never had the balls to actually kind of admit something like that before. That was always kind of behind the scenes. Like, even the Blink 182 guy, what was his name? That he's the singer for Blink 182. I'll remember his name in a second. But he came out with that one website that I exposed where they were doing brain scans, and it's like brain scans is one thing. You put a helmet on that's outside interface, and but putting wires in your head is really bad. Like that's a next level step in this whole training us to be loyal servants, mind control, MK Ultra, going back to Nazi Germany, like where mind control experiments were happening. It was brought over to the United States through Project Paperclip. I mean, Project Paperclip, a lot of people are like defending it and stuff. Recently, I noticed that kind of stuff when anybody brings it up. They kind of try to defend Project Paperclip. This is the biggest mistake the United States ever made, guys. They brought Warner von Braun over here, and I mean, we could have spied on these people. We could have had spies in there learning everything, which we did. During World War II, we had people in there learning what they were doing. We knew from documents released since then that Werner von Braun was in concentration camps, more than a dozen concentration camps, right before he came over to the United States. And it's detailed. There's detailed accounts of this. That they knew that this guy was an SS officer, that he had a pledge to the Nazi Third Reich, creating a Fourth Reich and all this stuff. That's what happened in America. Is we are living through the Fourth Reich essentially, with the fluoride in the water, with the lies, the disinformation on TV, the completely controlled duopoly of the Democrats versus Republicans, which really are working together to cover up 9/11 style false flag attacks and central banks and geoengineering and GMO and vaccines being bad for it. Even Trump, uh, who has a damaged son from vaccines, said that we should all just take the mumps vaccine. Remember that? Or the measles vaccine. It was measles. He's like, take the vaccine. Just take the vaccine. And it's like, no, dude. We don't trust you anymore. We don't trust anybody, right? I mean, I thought that's what the truth movement was all about, is we don't trust anybody. That we don't kind of put it all on the shoulders of the politicians, that we actually try to stand up for once and have a revolution. What happened to that? What happened to a peaceful revolution in this country? And abandoning these two parties that have steered us into a brick wall completely, societally. That America is collapsing because of these two parties. That we need independent candidates, or we end the Fed, or we occupy the Fed. Either you vote or you occupy the Fed. We have two options for peace. That's it. That's all we got. And I'll end the stream here. It's only 22 minutes, but it's my first stream. I just wanted to test if it even worked. And I guess it only works on my house computer. So it doesn't work on my cell phone, guys, which sucks. I can't just like bring my Wi-Fi with me and stuff outside. I wish I could, and film me bullhorn, because that's why I want to do live stream. I have to get 1,000 subscribers before I can do live streams on my phone. Okay, so yeah, I'll just leave it there. But go ahead and pick through anything I said and try to prove me wrong, please. All right, ending stream now.